Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be going over the quiz review for your quiz from 5.1 to 5.3. Number 1 wants me to give one positive and one negative coterminal angle to theta. In this question, I'm looking for two answers, so on the quiz, this will be worth 2 points. Remember, coterminal means I spin in a complete circle and I land up on my original angle. So for my positive one, I want to add 360 to the angle I was given. So I'm going to do 275 plus 360, and I will use my calculator for this one. So I want to do 275 plus 360, which gets me 635. Then for the negative coterminal angle, I want to take my angle and subtract 360 from it. My answer should have a negative sign in it. If for some reason you're taking the test and you still end up with a positive number, just subtract 360 again. So then I'm going to do 275 minus 360, which gives me negative 85. Okay. Number 2 wants me to find the complement of 42 degrees. Remember, complements add to 90. Or if I'm in radians, pi halves. So what I'm going to do to find my complement of 42 degrees is I am going to take 90 and subtract the 42 degrees. Again, I'm going to use my calculator because I don't trust my mental math right now. 90 minus 42 gets me 48 degrees. Okay. Number 3 wants me to convert degrees to radians and then to leave my answer in exact form, so leave the pi. I'm going to start off with the 135, then I'm going to multiply by my conversion factor, which is pi radians over 180 degrees. So I can rewrite this as 135 over 180 times pi. Then what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and simplify my fraction. So on my calculator, I can do 135 divided by 180. Then I go math, enter, enter, which gives me 3/4, and I want to remember to put that pi back on the top. So my answer here is 3 pi fourths. Radians. I forgot to write it. Number 4, it wants me to convert radians to degrees. I can tell it's radians because it doesn't have the degree symbol. So on this one, I'm going to start off with 5 pi twelfths, and I'm going to multiply by 180 divided by pi. Because I have a pi on the top and bottom, the pi's will cancel out. So really, I'm left with 5 times 180 divided by 12. I can type that into my calculator. Which gives me 75 degrees. Number 5 wants me to find a supplement of this angle. Supplements add to, if I'm in degrees, 180 degrees, or if I'm in radians, pi. So what I'm going to do here is I am in radians. I'm going to take pi and subtract 7 pi 18ths. What I can do is I can pull out that pi for now. I'll put it back in my final answer. But if I factor out a pi divided by pi is 1. Negative 7 pi 18ths is negative 7 18ths. I can type in just the part that's in parentheses into my calculator. So 1 minus 7 18ths. If I go math, fraction, enter, this gets me 11 18ths. So my final answer here is 11 pi 18ths. I put that pi back on the top. Okay. Number 6 wants me to give one positive and one negative coterminal angle. So again, this is asking for two things here. On this question on the quiz, it'd be worth 2 points. To this angle, and it gives it to me in radians. When I'm working with radians, 2 pi is a complete circle. So For the positive, I'm going to add 2 pi. So I have 2, oops, that 2 is really ugly. So I have 2 pi 15ths that I want to add 2 pi. I can add this on my calculator without the pi's for now. So I can do 2 15ths plus 2. And if I go math, fraction, enter, this gives me 32 pi 15ths. For my negative, I can subtract 2 pi from 2 pi 15ths. So on the calculator, I'm going to type in 2 15ths minus 2. Go math, fraction, gives me negative 20. Ooh, the light. Gives me negative 20. That didn't help it much. Oh. I wanted this one. There you go. It gives me negative 28 15ths, which if I put back with my pi, the pi goes on top. And that is my negative coterminal angle. Okay. On number 7, it wants me to find the arc length of a circle with a radius of 16 inches intercepted by an angle of 60 degrees. What I want to do here is when I am finding arc length, I want to go ahead and make sure my angle is in radians. So I'm going to go convert from 60 degrees to radians. For now, I'm going to leave this answer as a fraction. So I'm just going to do 60 divided by 180 and then simplify it, which gives me 1/3. So pi thirds. Then what I want to do next is I am going to find the arc length, which is taking my radius and multiplying by, I'm going to take my arc length and multiply by my angle measure. So this formula here is S equals R theta. R is my radius, theta is my angle, and S is my arc length. So I'm going to have 16, because that's my radius, times pi thirds, which this one wants a decimal, so I'm going to type it all into my calculator. This gets me 16.76. And this was in inches. So don't forget your units on these kinds of questions. Number 8 wants me to find the angular speed of an object that makes 6 revolutions per minute. So for this one, what I want to do is I want to take my revolutions and multiply by how many radians there are in a complete circle, which is 2 pi. I'm going to do 2 pi times 6, which gets me 12 pi radians per minute. So number 9 says, a wind machine used to generate electricity has blades that are 10 feet in length. The propeller is rotating at 4 revolutions per second. Find the linear speed in feet per second of the tips of the blades, round to the nearest whole number. So what the first thing I want to do here is I want to figure out how fast the angular speed is here. So I'm going to take 2 pi, because that's how long it takes to make a complete revolution. And this one told me there are 4 revolutions, so I'm going to multiply by 4. That gives me 8 pi radians per second. Then what I want to do next is I want to turn this into linear speed. by multiplying by my radius, because this is, I'm going to draw a really bad fan or wind machine, but they kind of look like this, and each blade is 10 feet, so that is my radius there. So I'm going to take the 10 and multiply by my radians per second. Which is going to give me 80 pi. Oh, and I want to type this one in the calculator because it wants me to round to a nearest whole number. So then I get 80 times pi gets me 251. Then because this is linear speed, I'm going to use my units from my radius, which was feet per second. Number 10 wants me to evaluate sine 3 pi fifths. This one, I want to make sure the calculator is in radians. So for here, I am going to, if I'm on a newer calculator, it will tell me the word up above right here. It'll either say degree or radian. If I'm on an older calculator, I just need to go into mode to check. So I go mode. I arrow down. If the word degree is highlighted, that means it's in degrees. I want radians for this problem, so I press enter. And then radians should either be black or flashing. Then I go second mode to go back home. And I can type this in. So I have sine, oops, should be 3 pi, not 36 pi. Fifths, and then I press enter. On these kinds of problems, I will typically want to round to 4 decimal places. I will make sure that's included on your instructions. But so 0.9551511 is my answer here. Okay. Number 11 wants me to use the triangle to find the exact values of all 6 trigonometric functions. It labels 2 of the sides for me, so I need to find the value of the third side. What I first want to do is I want to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out this length. This is my longest side, so I'm looking for my hypotenuse here. I am going to take 13 squared, add it to 4 squared, and set it equal to c squared. So 13 squared is 169. 4 squared is 16. C squared stays c squared. I don't know 169 plus 16, so I'll add those on my calculator. This gets me 185. And then I want to go ahead and take my square root. 185 is not a perfect square, so I want to see if I can simplify it. 185 divided by 5 is 37. 37 is prime, so this cannot simplify any further. So from now on, I'm going to be using the square root of 185 for my hypotenuse. The angle I care about is angle A. So then what I want to do is I want to base all of my trig ratios off of that. My opposite, let's actually use green. So my opposite side of that is right here with the 4. My adjacent is the 13. And then my hypotenuse is the value we just found. So then I want to start off finding my trig functions. I like starting off with sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, which is 4 over the square root of 185. Because I have a radical on the bottom, I want to rationalize this to get rid of it. I'm going to multiply both the top and bottom by the square root of 185, which will give me 4 square root of 185 over 185. Then I want to go do the same thing for cosine. This one is going to be 13 over the square root of 185. Then I also need to again rationalize my denominator. This is going to give me 13 square root of 185 over 185. Then I have tangent next. This one is opposite over adjacent, so this one is just 4/3. Then cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So I want to go ahead and flip my fraction for sine. I can either use the one I found for my final answer or my initial one. I'm going to use my initial one, so I don't have to rationalize the denominator. This just gives me the square root of 185 over 4. And I'm kind of running out of room, so I'm going to write this here. Then I have secant. This one is the reciprocal of cosine. I'm going to flip my original here. So this is going to give me the square root of 185 over 13. Then I want to find my cotangent. This one is the reciprocal of tangent. So this gives me 3/4. Okay. Number 12 says let -3, -5 be a point on the terminal side of theta. So find each of the 6 trig functions. So I want to graph this. This is going to be -3, -5. I need to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out that radius value right here. So I'm going to have -3 squared plus -5 squared equals c squared. -3 squared is 9. 5 squared is 25. This is going to give me, nope, just regular 34. Then I want to go ahead and square root both sides. The factors of 34 are 2 and 17. 17 is prime and so is 2, so I can't factor anymore. That means my radius here is the square root of 34. I can either use the x, r, and y formulas that are on the notes for this, or I can just remember sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent is opposite over adjacent, and then my reciprocal functions. Remember, you will need to remember the ratios. They will not be given to you on the quiz. I also forgot to mention linear and angular speed formulas, and what was the other thing we did? Arc length formulas will not be given to you on this quiz. So going back, I want to figure out my trig functions. Sine of theta is going to be, and the angle, if I'm looking at this, would be right here. So that would make this my opposite, this my adjacent, and this my hypotenuse. That will give me -5 over the square root of 34, which I need to go ahead and rationalize. Square root of 34. This will give me -5 square root of 34 over 34. Then I want to go do the same thing for cosine. That is going to be -3 over the square root of 34. I will again want to rationalize this. This is going to give me -3 square root of 34 over 34. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So this is going to be -5 over -3. They're both negative, so this turns positive. Then I have cosecant, which is the reciprocal of sine. So I'm going to flip my original. That is going to give me -, square root of 34 over 5. Then secant is the reciprocal of cosine. That is going to give me -, square root of 34 over 3. And then cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. I can either use my original or my simplified one. I'm going to go with my simplified one to find the reciprocal, which gives me 3/5. So one more thing I want to point out about 11 and 12 is on the quiz, each of these 2 problems will be worth 6 points because you are asked to find 6 different things here. So make sure you answer these questions on the quiz as they are worth a large portion of it. Number 13 wants me to use trigonometric identities to transform one side of the equation into the other. Remember, this means change one side, don't change the other. On this one, I am going to rewrite my cotangent. So I have tangent of theta, and I'm rewriting cotangent of theta as 1 over tangent of theta. I will give you your identities on the quiz, but I'm not going to label what kinds of identities they are. So I'm not going to say reciprocal, quadratic, or Pythagorean. I'll just give them to you. Okay. My printer hates me. Sometimes it prints out numbers and sometimes it doesn't. Should be a theta here, which will be on yours. So then when I multiply tangent by 1 over tangent, those will cancel out and just leave me with 1. This simplifies to cosecant theta. And then this is a reciprocal identity, so this is going to give me sine theta equals sine theta. On this question, there's nothing to box. All of my steps are my answers. If you don't show me completed work, if you just gave me this as your final answer, you wouldn't get any points. If you gave me this as your final answer, you would get half the points because you're not showing me all of the steps on how you got there. Okay, number 14 says given tangent of theta equals -2/3 and cosine of theta is less than 0, find cosine of theta and cosecant of theta. So I'm going to start out by drawing a sketch. I want to figure out where tangent is going to be negative. Nope, not -1, just negative. And where cosine is also going to be negative. So remember, tangent is, here, let me write these out. All students take calculus. Tangent is positive in this quadrant and this quadrant. So the S and C quadrants are where tangent is negative. And then I want to figure out where cosine is negative. Cosine is positive in all and C for cosine. So cosine is negative right here. So the two that are overlapping are in the second quadrant. So that means my triangle is going to be drawn here. It's tangent, so I know that it's opposite over adjacent. This is going to be 2/3. And then because I'm in the second quadrant, the y value is negative. So now I want to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out my radius. 2 squared is 4, -3 squared is 9. This is going to give me 13. I want to square root both of those, so this is square root of 13 for right there. Then it wants me to find cosine of theta. Cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse, so this is going to be -3 over the square root of 13. I need to rationalize my denominator. So I have the square root of 13 over the square root of 13, which will give me -3 square root of 13 over 13. Then I also want to find cosecant. This one is hypotenuse over opposite. So this is square root of 13 over 2. Nothing to simplify here. So that is my final answer. Number 15 wants me to give the reference angle for 195 degrees. So if I went to graph this out, 195 is right here. So I want to find my difference from 180. 195 is larger, so I'm going to do 195 minus 180, which will give me 15 degrees for my reference angle. Then number 16 wants me to evaluate cosine 13 pi 6 using reference angles and to show my work. 13 pi 6 is right here. Goes around completely once and then ends right there. So I want to do 13 pi 6 minus 2 pi. This will give me pi 6 because I can type this in on my calculator. I can do 13/6 minus 2, and then I go math, fraction, gives me 1/6. So then I'm really evaluating cosine pi 6, which, remember, according to that chart, is 1/2. And because it's in the first quadrant, all trig functions are positive, so this one is positive.